Hello and welcome to another interesting episode on Days of the Past. Today we will be talking about a woman who was called the Lioness of Lisabi, a fearless woman who stood toe-to-toe with kings, challenged colonial powers, and gave her voice to thousands of women who had none. Long before the world spoke loudly of feminism, she lived it. She was a mother, a teacher, a fighter, and the matriarch of a family that shook Nigeria and the world. This is a remarkable story of Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti, the woman who refused to be silenced. Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti was born Frances Abigail Funmilayo Thomas on 25th October 1900 in Abeokuta, present-day Ogun State, Nigeria. She grew up in a Yoruba Christian home, the daughter of Chief Daniel Olumeyiwa Thomas and Lorecia Phyllis Omoyeni Adeosholu. Her parents valued education at a time when many Nigerian girls had little access to formal schooling. Young Funmilayo attended the prestigious Abeokuta Grammar School, where she became the first female student to enroll. From there, she proceeded to England, studying at Wincham Hall School for Girls in Cheshire. This exposure to British education broadened her worldview and sharpened her confidence, preparing her for a life of activism. When she returned to Nigeria in the 1920s, she quickly stood out as one of the few highly educated women of her generation, and she intended to use that privilege to challenge injustice. Back in Nigeria, Funmilayo became a teacher, passionate about passing on education to girls. She married Reverend Israel Oludotun Ransome-Kuti in 1925, a union that produced 4 children, including Fela and Anikulapo Kuti, the world-renowned Afrobeat pioneer. As a teacher and community leader, Funmilayo emphasized women's empowerment. She dropped her English names and insisted on being addressed by her Yoruba names, an early sign of her anti-colonial stance. Her activism blossomed in the 1930s and 1940s. She organized market women who formed the backbone of the local economy, but were often marginalized and overtaxed by colonial authorities. She helped them form cooperatives, negotiate better prices, and resist unfair levies. This grassroots mobilization would set the stage for her most famous movement, the Abeokuta Women's Union. In the 1940s, the colonial government and the Alake, traditional ruler of Egbaland, imposed oppressive taxation on women traders. Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti rallied thousands of women under the Abeokuta Women's Union. Their protests were disciplined, strategic, and powerful. They marched, sang songs of resistance, and refused to be silenced. At times, over 10,000 women would gather at the palace to demand justice. The movement was successful. The Alake was forced to abdicate in 1949, a groundbreaking victory led by women in colonial Nigeria. This cemented Funmilayo's reputation as the Lioness of Lisabi. Her activism extended beyond Abeokuta. She joined the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroon's NCNC, working with Nnamdi Azikiwe and other nationalists in the struggle for Nigeria's independence. She also traveled widely to China, the USSR, Britain, and the US, making her one of the first Nigerian women to engage in international diplomacy and anti-colonial advocacy. Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti continued her activism into the 1950s and 1960s. She campaigned for women's suffrage, economic justice, and against foreign domination. She also raised fearless children who carried a radical spirit, most notably Fela, who blended music with political rebellion, often citing his mother's influence. In 1978, during the military regime of General Olusegun Obasanjo, soldiers raided Fela's Kalakuta Republic commune in Lagos. The violent attack led to the brutal assault on Funmilayo, who was thrown from a window. She sustained severe injuries and never fully recovered. She died on 13th April 1978, aged 77. Her death shocked the nation but also immortalized her as a matter for justice. Today, Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti is remembered as a trailblazer in Nigerian feminism, nationalism and social justice. She challenged both colonial powers and patriarchal structures, proving that women could not only participate in but lead political change. Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti lived a life larger than fear. She fought for women when silence was the norm. She confronted colonial power when obedience was expected. And she raised a generation that carried her fire into music, politics and activism. Her voice may have been silenced in 1978, but her role still echoes in the rights women enjoy today, in the courage of activists across Africa, and in the history books that cannot forget her. She was not just a woman of her time. She was a woman ahead of her time. The Lioness of Lisabi lives on. And that's all we have for you today on Echoes of the Past on Nmegide TV. Join us again, same time, same station, next week Thursday. My name is Amaka Neji.